Alright, so for this assignment we're going to get some practice drawing facial features. And before we begin, here's a brief disclaimer. There's not one right way to draw a face. Throughout art history, people have done it many different ways. The portraits of Rembrandt are vastly different from the portraits of Basquiat. Picasso painted faces many different ways. George Condo has his own way of drawing faces. Look at the variation in style between the portraits of Caravaggio or Matisse, Frida Kahlo, or Toyin Odutula, or Francis Bacon. Approaches to portraiture can range from photorealistic to completely abstract. So try your best to embrace what's nice about the way that you're drawing the face. And keep in mind that if you want to get good at this, you just got to really practice it a lot. So for each feature, I'm going to start by showing you some kind of common mistakes. Then I'll show you how I draw it from my head. And then I'm going to let you guess what celebrity facial feature I'm drawing. If you want to skip ahead to a specific part, I've got the timestamps in the description below. All right, so let's get started. We'll start by sketching some mouths. When drawing a mouth, most of my beginner students draw a problematic shape that looks kind of like this, like a strange hamburger bun. If you're trying to draw a closed mouth realistically, it's a good idea to start with the center line, the line between the lips. Sometimes this is referred to as a Cupid's bow. Next, you can start to create a line at the top of the top lip. You can put another line here underneath the bottom lip. Because of the shape of the mouth, you'll almost always see the top lip shaded darker than the bottom. Believe it or not, I've seen a lot of mouths drawn from the side like this. This looks more like a sideways broken heart. There will be a lot of variation in shape and proportion when drawing a mouth from the side. I also like to draw the area above the top lip and below the bottom lip as well. Since that top lip curves in, it's going to receive a little bit more shadow than the bottom lip. Alright, let's see if you can guess what famous smile I'm drawing now. This time I'm still starting with the lines on the inside of the mouth, and then adding the top lip. When I'm doing light shading, I like to hold the pencil at the very back, and let the weight of the pencil make the marks. Drawing a smile with teeth is actually pretty easy, but you want to avoid putting dark lines between the teeth. For these, I'm just drawing in shapes where the gums are. Notice how the triangular gum shapes at the top line up with these on the bottom. Here I'm adding a little bit of light shading between the teeth, but you'll only have dark lines if there are noticeable gaps. This famous smile belongs to none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We'll do some ears next. When we think of an ear, the most likely shape to pop up in our head will be kind of a semicircle with a few little random squigglies inside. This kind of looks like a Simpsons ear. When you're trying to draw an ear realistically, look closely at the shape. Keep in mind that there's a lot of different varieties of ear shapes. The best thing to do is to find an ear to look at. Try to draw it as best you can. Don't forget to do your shading. If you have some type of blending tool, you can use that too. I didn't use one in mine, so I'm leaving them kind of sketchy looking. Some people like to use their finger to blend with. You can do that too. Now, drawing an ear from the front, it's a similar concept. You're just going to kind of make it more compact. I think there's a name for every part of the ear as well. This little triangular part toward the center is called the tragus. And don't forget your shading here, especially in these little indented areas near the top of the ear. Now let's see if you can guess who this celebrity ear belongs to. I'd be surprised if you were memorizing the shapes of people's ears. Maybe these piercings will give you a hint. Keep in mind that the important thing here is to look closely at what it is that you're trying to draw. So did you identify that ear? Nice job. I knew you could do it. Let's do noses next. When drawing noses, I've seen a lot of shapes that look like this. What is that? When I draw noses from the front, I always start with the creases on the sides of the nose. Most of the time, nostrils don't look circular from the front. They look a little bit more flat. Sometimes they're connected and sometimes they aren't. Just depends upon the nose that you're trying to draw. Instead of drawing lines to describe the bridge of the nose, add a little bit of shading here. You'll also need some shading underneath the nose. There will be a lot of variation when drawing a nose from the side, so make sure you have a nose to look at while you're practicing. Many times this line for the nostril will be disconnected from the line at the bottom of the nose. I always like to draw a little bit of the lip and maybe a little bit of the eyebrow ridge too, so it doesn't look quite so weird, just sitting there by itself. I usually add shading along the bridge of the nose and also underneath the nose to give it more of a sense of form. You're never going to guess this celebrity nose. Well, maybe some of you nose enthusiasts out there. Okay, almost done. Who do you think this nose belongs to? That was some excellent nose guessing. Okay, time to draw some eyes. Most beginners will draw an eye that looks something like this. Sort of a football with two circles inside of it. Let's try drawing one a little more realistically. When you look closely at the shape, one thing you'll notice is that it's not symmetrical. And most times you won't be able to see the entire circle of the iris. I'm drawing this second eye to show how it looks when you can see less of the iris. Now I'm going to draw the pupil in each eye. For many eyes, you'll also see this wrinkle above the eye. Now I'm shading in the iris. Usually it's darker at the top and gets lighter toward the bottom. When I draw eyelashes, I usually start at the eye and then pull the pencil away. You'll also notice that I left a little space to show the light reflecting off the surface of each eye. The eyelashes should be thicker as they get closer to the eye. Here's how not to draw an eye from the side. That's just scary. The actual shape is going to have a little bit of a sharper corner. Notice I'm still reserving space for the light reflection and then shading in the iris. Tapering the eyelashes thicker toward the eye. I'm adding a nose for context. And shading the white of the eye just a little bit. For my celebrity example, I started with a line that'll help me keep everything lined up upon a central axis. You'll almost always notice that this top line is going to appear thicker than the bottom line, especially if your example is wearing any type of makeup. Whenever I draw the shape of an iris from a reference image, I always pay close attention to the shape of the white of the eye as well. When shading the eyebrows, try to move your pencil in the same direction that the eyebrow hairs are going. These are the eyes of Houston, Texas' own Queen Bee. So that's all for now. In the next video, I'll go over how to put all these features together. Make sure to practice until it becomes easy for you, and share your sketches with me. See you next time.